Is it possible for the Noles to land 5 or more 5-stars in the 2024 recruiting class? Let's look at who FSU is targeting today, who they have a realistic shot at, and who we think they definitely land this recruiting cycle. In 2023, 8 teams finished with multiple 5-stars. Those teams finished in the top 7 of 8 spots in the country in the 247 rankings. The only one that finished outside of the top 10 was Texas A&M, who only had 2 5-stars, and they also took the smallest class of the top 15, so it kind of makes sense why they were a little bit lower. But teams that had multiple 5-stars finished very high in the recruiting rankings, which makes sense. You get the most credit for 5-stars. They obviously pull your class average way, way up. If you're landing multiple 5-stars at a high clip, you're probably recruiting high 4-stars and a bunch of blue chip players at that high rate. And thus, you finish with multiple 5-stars, you do finish high in the recruiting rankings. Florida State is battling it out and in the mix for more 5-stars this year than they have been in a long time. They've got a chance to do some special things, and the recruiting trail has been on fire since they got 10 wins in 2022. There are some guys who will likely end up in this class, and there are some who are long shots. There's some that are going to be a battle until the end, but let's take a look at who they may land, how many 5-stars we think they'll get, and we'll make a prediction at the end on who we think is next. Just before we get started, I do want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Garnet and Gold. If you're an FSU fan like I'm an FSU fan, make sure that you're shopping at garnetandgold.com for all of your FSU gear. Can't wait to get up there and join them for the spring game this weekend. Again, use code NOSLAW, NOSLAW, for 15% off at checkout. GarnetandGold.com, the best in licensed FSU apparel, merchandise, swag, gear, whatever you're looking for, they've got you covered. Let's jump into it. Here are the guys that Florida State is targeting right now. Number 1, we're looking at Jeremiah Smith. He is verbally committed to Ohio State. He has been since late December of last year. He's a 5-star wide receiver, and he's considered the 247 composite number 2 overall player this recruiting cycle, and he's the top wide receiver in the nation. He's 6'3", 198 pounds. He plays down there in Opelika at Chaminade Madonna Prep, and we think Jeremiah Smith ultimately signs with Ohio State, but don't be shocked if FSU continues to make a pretty hard push to flip him and makes their case on the field this season. Cam Coleman is another one, not only getting looks for FSU, but also Alabama, Auburn, LSU, and other SEC programs. He is a 5-star according to 247 Sports. He's the 4th overall best athlete in the state of Alabama. He's 6'3", 175 pounds. He's at Central High School in Phoenix City, Alabama. FSU's in the mix here, but running probably 3 or 4 based on which recruiting site you're watching, following visits. I don't know that they have the juice to pull the kid out of Alabama, but I do think that they will stay in the mix here for the next little bit. I think they'll probably fade a little bit from his recruitment, but I do think that it's good that they're in the mix, and we'll see what kind of noise can be made here with Cam Coleman. Here's a big one for the Noles, who has recently been on campus, KJ Bolden. He is a 5-star athlete. He's the top recruit in the state of Georgia. He's the top safety in the country, and he's ranked 4th overall in the nation. Right now, he is a big-time UGA lean, but Florida State is putting a ton of pressure on KJ and trying to get him to commit and trying to be part of their class. Florida State's competing against the likes of UGA, Alabama, Ohio State, Auburn, and Clemson. This is a long shot to me still. I don't think that the Noles are leaders here. I think they might be running 2nd or 3rd. I think that KJ would be a very, very solid addition to the class. I just don't know that they're ready to pull him yet from UGA. Results on the field will certainly matter, but I expect UGA to have a really good season as well. I like UGA still in this battle, but I think Florida State's going to do everything they can to try and stay in this, and it's good that they've gotten him on campus multiple times. And the guy, just before we take a look at the guys that Florida State has a shot with and the guys that I think they'll be in a battle until the end with, Let's give a quick shout out to our Discord. Our Discord is found on discord.com. You can download their app and just search DFNS. There's also a link to it above and in the description that you can find. We share a lot of inside info there, and we share a lot of news and notes. There's actually access to some private channels if you're a member of this YouTube channel right here. We like to interact with you over there. It's much more exactly that, interactive than YouTube is, where you can ask questions and we can really talk about different recruits, different things going on. So go check out our Discord and join us there. It's completely free to join. Like I said, there are some private channels that you can pay for, but for the most part, we hang out and we have a really good time over there. So join us today on Discord. Again, it's DFNS. Search for it over there, and we have a really, really good time with it. The guys that Florida State has a shot with, these are going to be battles until the very end. Number one is JoJo Trader. He is going to be picking between Florida State and Miami. I know that Ohio State's in there a little bit as well, but I believe that it'll be between Florida State and Miami. The South Florida prospect is not going to be an easy one. I think that Florida State will have a lot of work to do here, but I do think results on the field will matter a ton in this one. He is a 6'1", 175-pound five-star from Chaminade Madonna Prep in Hollywood, Florida. Again, Florida State and Miami are who I'm keeping an eye on here, and I think Florida State has a great shot in this. I think that if signing day was today, the noles land Trader. But there's a long way to go, and South Florida recruitments often have way more twists and turns than we usually expect. I don't know how it ends up landing or how it ends up coming out, but I do think the noles are in a great, great spot for JoJo Trader. Number two is Landon Thomas. Currently, Thomas is a UGA tight end commit. He is a five-star. He's one of the best players in the country from Moultrie, Georgia. Pulling a kid that is a current Georgia commit seems daunting. Doesn't seem like something that Florida State or many schools should really even go for or attempt, but he has a great relationship with the folks there at Florida State. He's been on campus several times. He said that he is going to official visit to Tallahassee and to Florida State. I think that this would be a massive pull to get the 6'4", 240-pound tight end away from his Georgia commitment. Ultimately, I think he sticks with Georgia, but I think the noles are in as good of a spot as you can be in for a kid who is committed to the best team and the best recruiting team in the country. I think they ultimately finish second here. It's never really a bad thing with the transfer portal now these days, but I do think they're going all in on trying to flip Landon Thomas, and I think they have the best chance in the country to do so. Here's one that I feel really, really good about, and I do think this will be a battle, but I feel really good about Jamari Howard. He's a 6'2", 175-pound cornerback out of West Hialeah, Florida. Right now, he's committed to Michigan State, but he seems to be wavering on that. And I've talked with some people both on the Florida and Florida State side, and I truly believe that he is not very solid at MSU. I think that they're doing anything and everything they can to hold on right now. He has certainly risen in the rankings, and I think that Florida State currently leads. I've spoken with some people at UF that think Florida State is probably the leader here. I think that his several visits to both Florida State and Florida recently have certainly given some people some insight that MSU commitment is not super solid. Right now, he's the number 50 player overall on On3's rankings. He's not a five-star yet. He is a four-star cornerback, but with a rise of just 18 spots, he could rise into that top 32, and if he rises in the top 32, he will be a five-star. So this might be a little bit of a stretch. I think the noles land him, but I put him in the battle till the end because I'm not quite sure if he's going to be a five-star or not. He might be just outside of that range and a really, really high four-star elite type talent, but he might fall just outside of that top 32 and not be a five-star. I really like where the noles stand right here. I think if today was signing day, even though he's committed to Michigan State, I think Florida State has the upper hand over Florida, but there is a long way to go. This is going to be a Corey Raymond versus a Pat Surtain battle. I think the noles come out on top here, but again, there's a long way to go. This is another South Florida recruitment. We'll keep our fingers crossed, and we'll see how it goes. All right, let's look at the guys I think Florida State ends up with in their class. And just like Jamari, I got Luke Kromenhoek here first. Obviously, he's already committed to the noles. He's the number 8 quarterback in the country, 6'4", 185 pounds. He's right now ranked number 59 in the nation as far as overall players go. He has seen a meteoric rise over his time being recruited to go from an unranked prospect. Mike obviously found him as a 3-star. Up to the number 59 player in the country, the number 8 quarterback overall in the nation. It'll take a little bit more for him to rise, but with a really, really strong senior season and some good camps, it's possible, right? He'd need to rise 27 spots to get to that number 32. Can he do it? Maybe. But I do think the Noles end up holding on to Crowman Hook. I think that he's part of their class. I don't have any kind of doubt or worry. I know he visited Penn State last week, but he'll be in Tallahassee for the spring game this weekend. With a little bit of a rise, I think we could see Luke end up being part of that five-star category. Next up, I think the Noles definitely hold on to Cam Davis. He's 5'10", 200 pounds from Albany, Georgia. We've done full-length videos on him, so I won't spend as much time here. But he's the number 2 running back in the 247 composite. Current FSU commit. He visited Florida last week, and I don't know that he said this, but essentially they were told no thanks. So I like the Noles to hold on to Cam. I think that he'll be their first and longest five-star commitment. I think that he ends up in this class as well. And he marks the box as number 1 commit 5-star for sure. Next up, we are looking at the number 1 offensive tackle in the country, who I do think ends up with the Noles as well, Jonathan Daniels. He is On3's number 1 tackle in the nation. He's from Pensacola, Florida, 5-star offensive tackle. Florida State has a couple of predictions in for him already, both on On3 and 247. He's a 6'5", 285-pound kid. Out of, again, Pensacola, Florida. I think being relatively close, being in the Panhandle, I think he ends up picking the Noles. I heard LSU is really strong here as well, but I think the Noles do get him. I think the relationship with Alex Atkins, I think that the way that things are trending right now, he's a kid who could pop soon and could end up being a Nole very, very soon and for the long haul, right? The next 3 or 4 years. So I think Jonathan Daniels will be the second 5-star in the class. And that takes us to our last and final kid that we're going to talk about today, Charles Lester III. Maybe the worst kept secret out there. I don't want to say that anything's a done deal with any kid or any recruit, as kids can change their mind, but the 6'2", 171-pound kid out of Sarasota, Florida, he has an OV set up for the summer already. I know that he's visiting a couple of other places, but he is visiting Florida State last. I think that sets up really, really well for Florida State to get a very early July commitment from Charles Lester. He is a top 30 player according to all 4 recruiting sites. He is going to be a consensus 5-star. On3 calls it a 5-star plus. I think that he will be Florida State's 3rd 5-star of the class. And I think that they do end up landing Charles Lester. He's my prediction for the next 5-star to commit to the Noles in this class. We'll see what happens. We'll see if anybody else pulls the trigger before him. But he would be my prediction. If the Noles are going to get another 5-star, it's going to be Charles Lester. So what's that all leave us with? Do Luke and Jamari get to that 5-star status? I actually think it's unlikely that they both rise enough to get near 5-star status. But I do think it's possible. And I think Luke is probably maybe you're more likely as a quarterback. And quarterbacks are definitely valued pretty highly. But Jamari being a cornerback, I think he's got a chance as well. Senior seasons and how they camp and their 7-on-7, all that stuff's going to be very important, and we'll see kind of how it all goes down. How many of these guys do FSU land? Well, let's get your thoughts down in the comments. What are your number on these 10 recruits that we've kind of told you about? I feel confident in saying they get 4 to 5 guys on the list. Obviously, I think they get the last 4 that I mentioned, being Luke, Cam, Charles, and Jonathan Daniels. I think they also get Howard, so that's number 5. Just maybe Luke and him aren't 5-stars. And then I think they've got a good chance at some of the other ones. I think Thomas and Trader are 2 guys that you're most likely going to be in it for until the end. Maybe you land one of them. Maybe you flip Thomas. Maybe you make a really late push with one of the first few guys that we talked about, whether it be KJ or one of those first couple of 5-stars at the top of the video. But I think they probably land with 4 or 5. There's a chance they get maybe 6. 6 would be a phenomenal pull for Mike Norvell in this staff. If you get 6 of these guys, I think 4 of them are 5-stars. And I think that's really, really impressive. You're probably finishing with 4 5-stars, 2 guys that are just outside of that 5-star range with Luke and Jamari. That's a top 5 class, without a doubt. There's a long way to go, but this could be an absolutely ridiculous class. And it drives home the point that we told you guys all through last year and to begin this year, that winning on the field was going to matter, and it was going to be a difference maker when it came to final results. People asked is Florida State not recruiting better with having 10 wins? And Florida State got their 10th win after early signing day had already happened. But if you look at the quality and the caliber of player that's on Florida State's campus right now, visiting, coming in, being part of this recruiting cycle, it is drastically different from what we were seeing last year. They have juice with the 2024 and beyond kids, and they really just didn't have that with the 23 class, based on the fact that they'd won 8 games over 2 years. I think that winning on the field, having a little bit of that proof of concept, having a little bit of that Mike Norvell being able to say, look, this is what we're doing, come in and be part of it so that you can take us to that next level is obviously paying off. We're going to keep you guys updated on everything that we're hearing through these recruitments, so make sure that you're locked in with the channel. We've seen pretty remarkable growth this year. Went from about 500 to about 6,000 subscribers. We'd like to get that number up over 10 this year, so help us do that. Join the family here at Double Fries No Slaw. If you missed the good news that FSU got with a massive waiver being approved, and a 13-game starter coming back for the Noles, you can do me a favor and click right here.